Well, welcome back. This is day 4 of the Continental, and today we're going to do some wingtips, and I'm going to show you how to achieve a shape like this. I had to go ahead and do one just to one side, the top, to see how it was going to work, but I'll show you how I did that. So first off, what I did was I have some RC wood, and it's 6 inches wide. Let me set this aside to give you a little better view of what I'm doing. It's 6 inches wide, and I had made a template off the drawings. They had it all pieced up, and we're going to cut a solid piece out of this. I'm not going to do the tips like they did in the drawings. So just I took a fine line marker. For some reason ballpoint pens don't like to write on this stuff. You draw it out and then you cut it out of that piece of wood. Now this is for the inboard side. So we're going to need this, and we're going to need a perimeter. We're going to need to make a perimeter to go around that 3/8 top and bottom, which I've already done on this tip here. And I'll turn it over and I'll show you how I've achieved this real nice shape on the top, because I haven't shaped the bottom yet. So if you'll notice here, I have the sheeting and a 3/8 perimeter piece around the outside of the wingtip. Basically, only this was 3/8 put on top of the balsa wood. I have a 1-inch block top and bottom, and I've kind of rough carved this so far, but we need to finish carving it. So you carve it to shape, take off small shavings with one of these long blades, and then we'll sand it to shape. And then these blocks are just tacked on. They're not permanently down, because we're going to take those up off this sheet and hollow them out. Now this wood that I used for the tip was RC wood, and I really didn't know what I was going to do with this stuff because it's heavy. But for the you want to keep the weight out of the tip, so go ahead and cut all the area out that you possibly can get cut out. Look at the top here. And then you add the rib and the cap strip. Make sure to add the turn piece here in the front, because that'll make the covering lie perfectly on that tip. And that was the beautiful thing about this model. Tom took a lot of time to figure out how to make everything work perfectly. And I built a lot of them in the 70s. I built a lot of them in the 80s. I built a lot of them in the 90s. This is the airplane I used to fly, and as a matter of fact, this is kind of the grandfather of the Viper. The Viper has a very similar wing. And the fuselage changed. You know, they're all noblers. Anyway, I won't bore you with the carving of this, but just go ahead and take your time, carve and shape this. Then we'll take some 80 grit paper and sand it to shape, and put in the rib. I'm also going to put in the back part of the flap, piece of 3/8 here, It's a tab that goes on the back, so it all blends in and sands in real nice on the trailing edge. So I'm hoping that you can get an idea of what I'm doing here. And when I do the inboard side, I'll show you how I've been doing the lead out guides, because I'm not going to do the lead out guides like they're shown on the plans. I also have another issue that I'm going to show on camera and try to work through, is the landing gear blocks. If you remember, I told you I had forgotten to put the landing gear blocks in the wing. Well, we're going to have to figure out how to put in some plywood ribs in there and add the gear blocks. So there's not many problems we can't work through. So I'll be back in a bit after I get this carved and shaped. I thought I would show this because a lot of people don't believe that I do it. This is 30 grit sandpaper. 30. Like 3 rocks per inch. And this is what I use for rough shaping. And it makes pretty quick work out of balsa wood. You just want to get it close, and then we'll switch to 80 grit. Keep looking at it, making sure that you got it symmetrical. Need to get this wingtip under a ½ ounce. And eyeball it up. Long ways to go yet. I'm kind of excited about this model. Like I said, I haven't had a classic model since the 90s. And we're going to try to keep this in the 40-ounce range to see if what I like is really there. I'm not sure what the original weighed. I would imagine around 55 ounces. Only Bob Whiteley could really tell us what it is, but I haven't seen him on the forum in a while. Hope he's alright. Coming undone then. Reglue this. I have to glue a filler piece in there, looks like. And let me look at it. Oh boy, long ways to go yet. When you get close, stop, because you can't put it back on. It's easy to take off, but impossible to put back on. I'm wondering how this model is going to come out, seeing that this was all my junk wood. That's why see how that looks. Yeah, we're getting close. just come down to the tip plate that you put in first, so it's even on both sides. When I get this done, I will do a close-up on camera of how the tip came out, shaped, so you can see. And like I say, we're doing this kind of backwards because I needed to test how this is going to work. Seeing as I did not do it the way the plans were drawn, I did it the old way. Oh boy, this wood is hard. Should finish up nice because it's so hard, but hope I can make it light enough. Well, we're getting it close. As soon as I get it close, I got to cut it back off and hollow the tip out. Total elapsed time on this sanding job. I didn't have the camera off long enough to whittle it out, and then I'm showing you the sanding how I do it. But it went quick, maybe 10 minutes. I'll show you how I get this center rib marked out and set in there. Okay, when I say get it close, you don't want to finish sanding it because we're going to have to cut the tip off. So we want to leave a little bit on there that we can blend it in. This way, there's probably a 32nd of an inch between the wing and the tip. It's just generally sanded to a shape. And that's close enough. So now what we're going to do is we're going to cut that off. And then I'm going to cut the blocks off. And I will hollow those off camera because I do them with a Dremel and it makes a lot of dust and a lot of noise. Take a knife and pop the tip loose. Had to glue it pretty good on this side to get it to stick. It didn't want to stick in there. Okay. I can already feel this tip is of substantial weight because it's poor wood and it's not hollowed. But at least here we can kind of handle it a little better and shape it with 80. So let's cut the blocks off and I just pull them off. I'm going to hollow these off camera, so we'll see in a bit. Okay, off camera I took the gouge and I gouged this out, and then I took the router and routed it. And I'm going to leave this about 3/16 of an inch thick, and I'll tell you why. You know, normally I try to carve things down to where you can see a nice pink color through them, but this is the wingtip. It's not completely shaped in at the top, so if I leave it 3/16, I'm going to sand a 1/16 of an inch off the outside, finishing it, so that'll leave me an 1/8 of an inch, and that's fine. And how I do that is I take the sandpaper and I put a drop of CA on it. Some people may or may not want to do this, but you do what you like. And your favorite method works. But this is what works for me. And I take a drop of CA and I drop it on the sandpaper and I stick it to my finger. It's a little warm, but you'll live through it. And then I just sand the inside. Now you want the inside to be as smooth as the outside. 2 reasons. 1, it'll be uniform and it'll be as light as possible. And 2, it'll be stronger. That way there's no stress riser, I guess. But it's like an eggshell. And it doesn't take long. I got about 5 minutes in hollowing this out. And that'll be ready to go, and then we'll do the other one. I'll do that one off camera. There's no need to keep showing the same things over and over again. Unless you guys want to see them. Now, yesterday I got an email from Contact Us form there on the site that I was missing some video on attaching the sheeting. Well, I was. And it wasn't long, it was only like 15 minutes, I think. But the problem was the video didn't take, and I apologize for that, but like I said, I just don't have professional equipment, so I gotta make do with what I got. And just use whatever you gotta use. Here I'm using a roll of sandpaper to knock some of it down. And that's basically how you get that sanded out inside. We'll go ahead and glue that back on. After I hollow this piece out here too, I want to get as much meat out of that as I possibly can. But we'll glue that back on and put the rib in just like the other side and do the other side. So I'll be back in a short. This is the tip on making some holes in lightning holes in the tips. I've cut both blocks off now. So basically what I'm going to do is I took the piece of brass tubing and I'm going to run a hole. Let me see if I can position the camera a little better. It's terrible being the cameraman and the webmaster. Okay, we can do it right there. Cameraman, webmaster, builder, programmer. So, what I do is I take the brass tube that's been skied. This is it's approximately 3/4 of an inch, and I'm going to go ahead and cut 4 holes in this, and we're going to cut away a big section of it. Now I don't know how much that'll save. But we're going to weigh these pieces and see if they weigh a gram. But even if they only weigh a gram, that is 1 gram less. What I said, you want the inside of the airplane to look as nice as the outside. I'm going to save that, we'll weigh that up, see what this piece weighs when we get it out of there. You could just cut holes, you know, you don't really have to cut out what like I'm going to do, but that's kind of like whatever you want to do. So I'll try to make it look symmetrical. Another hole there. As a matter of fact, I only need to do 3 holes because of the odd shape. So now we have those pieces, and we just take an X-Acto knife and connect the lines together. Connect the holes together and then take that piece out. And then I'll sand that on the inside so it looks nice. Nobody will see it except you. Why, it's hardwood. You don't want to break that because it'll probably break the rest of the tip. There it is. So let's see what these 3 pieces weigh. If it weighs a gram, I'll be happy. We got a gram out of it. Come on. Need to get a new scale. About a gram. A little less than a gram. But air is lighter than wood. I have a paint stick here with the sticky back sandpaper on it. I have numerous fingernail files, emery boards. That makes a nice sanding tool. I don't think this tip is going to be as light as I wanted, but that's the way it goes. I have no money to buy super light wood, so well, it is what it is. Just one coat of paint less I can put on it. So now we put this up here and we're going to glue it on permanently. Of course the tip doesn't work. And right here, we're going to have to glue that real good because that will show like a sore thumb when you cover it. So I'm going to wick some CA down in there and pull it together tight. That turned out real good. Then feather sand this edge right here into that. If it looks bad in wood, it'll look bad finished. I was talking to Roger yesterday. He's a crop duster. And he said something that made sense. If it looks wrong, it's probably wrong. And I'd have to agree with him. Come on. One of those days. Whittled out a little bit more there. And I still have this block to hollow. And how I did that, I'll show it one more time. Well, I'm not going to mark it because I didn't mark the other one. I just took the gouge and gouged it out. You'll notice what quick work it is. I mean, if you got a good sharp gouge, good tools is just like being a mechanic, is super important. You don't use craftsman tools if you're a professional mechanic. They might be good for home use, but they are no good. You're going to use them every day. Get a little closer. So I'm going to shut the camera off and use my Dremel tool for a minute to clean up this edge here, and then we'll come back and I'll sand out the inside. So I'll be back in a minute. Okay, I've got the tip built, but I need to put one more rib on this side. And so I'm going to show you how I do that. So I just take a piece of wood, that is not long enough. I know I saved a piece. We take a piece of wood and I got to make a 90-degree edge on it so that it's uniform. We're going to mirror the other side. Okay, so I have this. You know what, I better zoom out a little bit, maybe. There, you get a better idea. So right on top of the other one on the other side, I'm going to mark it, cut it to length. Is this the correct way? I don't know. You know, if I had a plotting thing where I could plot all the ribs and all that, it'd be great, but I don't, so This is the poor man's way of doing it. So, okay, it fits in there. I want to angle this edge to mate up with the perimeter. Now, we're going to have to get an airfoil on that. So you wonder, well, how are we going to do that? Well, it's pretty simple. First we mark where it's at, top and bottom. And you take the rib template where the spar is, so the spar is at the front, and draw a line from mark to mark. But if you cut it there, it'll be too tall. So you drop it down. We're using 3/32 cap strips, so you drop it down 3/32 and make another mark. And cut between the lines. And I do mean between the lines, because we're going to sand down to the line to make sure that it fits perfect. So that's what I've done there. Fits perfect, except it's still too tall. So now we're going to take the line off, and that'll give us the perfect shape and height for our ribs, so we can put the cap strip on it. And what I have been doing is I've been putting the cap strip on first. That way, if I have to sand any, I can sand it off the bottom. It's still a little tall, but we'll go ahead and cap strip it. And how I do that is just take a piece of cap strip material, hold it at 90 degrees to the bench, right in the center, 1 drop of CA, rotate it around the back, hold it in the center, 1 drop of CA, and then detail glue it down the line. Kick it off so we know it's on there good. Now I'm gonna, first I have to take the tang off the end so we get a sand this square. I know it sure seems like a lot of work, but it's not really. I'll take that off so I don't have so much to deal with. Okay, it's about a few thousandths too tall. But that's alright, we'll sand it off the bottom. So now, I'm holding the piece up there and I'm cutting the tail of the cap strip to the shape of the tip. That way it fits perfect. And I do mean perfect. Okay, so we have to take a little bit off the bottom of this piece to drop it down onto the tip. Few swipes. Measure twice, cut once. And we'll take a little bit more off, but I don't want to be taking off the cap strip. looks good. Hold it in place. Gotta make sure it's parallel. Three tacks. Look at it. Looks pretty good. Go ahead and glue it. Kick it off. I'm gonna cut some out of this because we don't need it. If I had a way to drill some holes in these ribs, I would do that too. Okay, I made up a stick, a dowel with some sandpaper on it to sand the inside of the wing. You remember I had to jig that up and couldn't cut the ribs. So I got the yardstick and a dowel. And I'm going to take that dowel now and I'm going to sand some out of there. That's too long, so I have this to sand all the way down the bottom of the wing, just back and forth, so I'm going to cut this off. Now we can sand the inside of the tip. Is this necessary? Probably not. Probably not, but then take the block and blend the cap strips in. And we're going to glue it on and blend it in. I like it. Well, it made me feel good. Somebody wrote in about the paintbrush tip that I showed them. They didn't realize how to get it off, you know, use them without crap falling into the paint. So let's see what it weighs. I know it's heavier than what I want, but this is what I got. It's about 3/4 of an ounce. I would have liked to have it in the 1/2 ounce range, but this is what I have. I just don't have the funds like I used to since our great president's taken office. Economy's booming, so they say. Well, I don't know where it's booming at because it ain't here. Now we're kind of detail sanding with 150. So we're going to glue it on and blend it in. Take your time because you only get one chance at this. I mean, I guess you could cut it off, but tack it up there, and we'll look at it. Make sure it's on there straight, and then I'll detail glue it. Oh. Looks pretty good. Surprised myself. Hold the tip apart, wick the CA down into the groove, and then push it together. That's how I do it. Hit it with kicker. Because we're going on for good now. Glue the whole line inside, both top and bottom. And like I said, you hold the crack open, wick the CA down in it, push it together, hit it with kicker. Hold it open, wick it in there. I wish I had a third hand. I'd hit it with kicker while I'm holding it. That kicker is about 10 years old. It's from Zap. I know it's not in a Zap bottle, but I found a bottle of Zap kicker, a refill bottle of Zap kicker, and I haven't had any of that. I bet it's more than 10 years. I bet it's 15 years, but it still works, so. Works so good it clogged up the tip again. Okay, outboard tip is done. Wing is still relatively light. We'll check that in a minute, but I will show you how I do the inboard tip because I want to show you how I make the lead out guide. So now I take 80 grit. Matter of fact, I'm going to take a little CA, wick it in that small crack, and sand right over it. That way the sawdust will fill that crack. I'll do it one more time. Had a small crack there. I don't want to use any little filler as possible. If you can feel it in a raw wood, you're going to be able to see it in paint. So now I'm down to 150, and I'll blend that in. Sight down it. That's up a little bit. So I need to take some more off of it. Remember where I told you I left some meat on there just for this reason, so we could get the final shape perfect. Of course, I will come back and do it one more time. It takes about 3 or 4 sandings on these tips to make them look really, really good. Because what happens is you'll sand it to shape. You think you got it. Go drink a cup of coffee and come back and you say, "Well, shoot, that ain't right. It ain't enough." At least that's how I do it. That looks real good. I like that. These are going to be super nice. Just wish it was a little bit lighter. A 1/4 ounce lighter would be nice. Now the trailing edge, get it, blend it in. That's good enough for now. I got to get that flat piece on the back here. If I keep sanding, I won't have nothing to sand to. So I got to stop there. That's one side. Do the other look at it for symmetry. Boy, I'm glad I left meat in there because even though I thought it was close, it's not quite. Before I do that other tip, I think I'm going to see if I can figure out how to do that landing gear. That has me a little concerned. Not much, because there isn't much that if you think about it you can't get out of, fix. Remember in one of my other videos, there ain't nothing, I said there ain't nothing you can't fix, all it takes is time. And if all else fails, all you run fuse mounted gear. It's not that big a deal. I just wouldn't, because this airplane was I don't know, I've always loved this airplane. I want to make it the closest to what Tom drew. Back in the 90s, Tom sent me some wheel pants drawings. They look like bananas. I couldn't believe it. I said, Tom, what are we doing here? I never use those wheel pants, the banana pants. Worse than Bob Hunt Crossfire wheel pants. I like Bob's pants. Liked them so much I made a mold so I could make the fiberglass one. Alright, let's detail sand it, and then we're going to set this aside. I'm going to go have some lunch, but we'll go ahead and I hope I've covered everything on the outboard tip. It's not that difficult, just a matter of cutting the pieces, gluing them together, sanding them to shape. I will show the way that I've been doing the lead outs, because everybody else uses basswood, I don't. I use plywood. Basswood plywood, I should say. Okay, there you go. We have one tip done. It looks pretty good. We'll have to come back with 320 and sand it. I have to add in the flat piece and blend it in. Got a high spot right here, I see. Randy Powell says a finish is never done, it's abandoned. And I don't doubt it. The silk span is going to lay so nice over the top of this. Be perfect. So there's no compound turn to pull to it. Basically straight. A lot of extra work. But I think it's going to be worth it. I know these are flying tips, so they add lift, they add wing area. They're not like the other tips that are just kind of flat or what have you. Okay, so let's clean that up. Looks good. So I'm going to cut the camera, go have some lunch, and I'll be back after lunch. So, see you in a bit.